Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Somewhere between science and superstition.
We have such sights to show you.
Strange Eons. Welcome to Strange Eons Radio. That's Eric over there.
Hello.
That's Vanessa over there.
Hello.
I'm Kelly. Eric, you and I have just gotten back from the Lovecraft Film Festival. So,
That's
Vanessa,
right.
Why don't you tell us all about Fantastic Fest?
Exactly.
I'm sure that Lovecraft was awesome, and I cannot wait to hear you guys really tell me all about it. But we got to make some room for what I've been up to lately. Well, Austin, Texas, at Alamo Drafthouse South Lamar. 103 degrees first couple days I was there.
My.
So hot you feel sick
Mhm.
when you walk outside. That's fun. I will say, I was expecting this like really kind of hoity-toity, like, I don't know, not upper crust, but like, like a hipster version of Crypticon. It is not. It's like one step above Crypticon.
Oh, wow.
Like a nice step. It's a good step.
Yeah.
But like it's very like the theaters are great. So like it's a nice space. Like it's really well organized. But it's the same people. Like it's the same fucking nerds with their like dumb shirts that you're like, oh, I have that shirt and that shirt. Oh yeah, it's crazy. Who are all sitting around talking about like the horror stuff they've seen this year, and it's not all cool, classy, whatever people. It's like cool, just nerds, just fucking nerds everywhere doing nerd stuff. So
This was your first time there?
it was,
Okay.
yeah. I wanted to. It's been on my bucket list for a long time, and so I finally went ahead and pulled the trigger. It was just had a birthday and thought, this would be a great way to celebrate. So
Cool.
yeah, flew out to Austin, and then instead of seeing the city that is vibrant and lively and awesome, I spent 4 days in a movie theater. So, and luckily they do serve you food. It's pretty good,
Oh.
but 4 days of however many meals you're eating there. Oh my God, you want to die. And the seats, you're like, I fucking hate these seats. Even though they're nice seats, you're just like, I want out. I want to stand and I want to eat a salad. All I want in my life. They did have one salad. It was not super good.
What's the attendance like for Fantastic Fest?
It's pretty full. It's not like overwhelming. Like you don't feel like you're, I don't know. It doesn't feel like you're in a mob, but it is very full.
But would you say numbers wise, is it 5,000? Is it?
Oh,
How many people?
I don't know. So it goes for 8 days. And there's the first half, which is 4 days, and then the second half, which is the pass I had, which is a lot of the films that were played the first half play again. So a lot of people who are there for the first half aren't there for the second half, or they're really pivoting what kinds of movies they're watching for the second half more towards the ones that haven't played yet. So yeah, it's I don't know, but it felt like there's 9-10 theaters, and each one of those holds, a couple hundred people. So felt pretty full. There's a lot of people standing around outside waiting for the next movie to start. So.
Keep talking. I'm trying to find numbers. I'm curious.
Sure. Yeah. Well, the way that it works also is you get this kind of weird lottery system. So 10 a.m. the day before the screening that you want, you can go and get your films for time slots. There's 5 time slots throughout the day. And there's between like maybe 3 and 5 different films that are playing in each slot. And yeah, it was a really interesting way to just be like, I'm just going to see these super random effing films.
So is everything past, but you don't like buy a ticket to see movie in this theater, or is it just all season pass?
It's mostly passes of different levels. So there's like the cult pass, which is like you spent the most amount of money and you get into everything and you get extra time ahead to book and you get a little bit more of that first come first serve, and you get to be seated first. Then there's the level right below that, which is like the full pass, and then you get to go in, and then like the half pass and then they have like the standby line for each movie. So then every seat is typically filled by the time you're done through all that. If it's not already sold out to begin with, any of the seats that are empty that weren't filled by people who were like couldn't be bothered coming, they then fill with the standby people. So kind of cool. Yeah. But definitely a unique experience. I'm really glad I did it. I'm fucking exhausted. So tired. I'm so tired. But, got to see some really interesting stuff. And I know that we'll go around and talk about different movies we saw, but I do want to start off by talking about two things that will be mass released pretty soon. Okay. So I don't want to include them in my reviews, I guess, or the stuff I saw this week. But I got to see both the first 2 episodes of 30 Coins.
Oh, man. Jealous.
As well as the first 2 episodes of Fall of the House of Usher.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Both good or different things?
Potentially both of them, each maybe the best stuff I saw at the whole fest.
Oh, wow.
They are so good. 30 Coins is in its stride. I think with the stinger of last season was we saw that our priest friend may or may not be in hell.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they just fucking go for it. It's so good. 30 Coins super delivers. Fall of the House of Usher. I'm actually really mad at Mike Flanagan. I'm angry because I was ready to hate on him, and I was like, oh, you're doing Oculus. Oh, aren't you clever? Oh, you're doing this, extra Ouija movie. Oh, good way to go, pal. And his stuff is so good. I want to die. I want to die with how good it is.
He's insanely talented in some respects.
Yeah, and this you will not be disappointed.
I wonder, because it seemed, he was putting out stuff, it seemed like every 3 months there for a little while. I wonder if he step back a little bit and spend a little more time on this one
I think he's doing what he is allowed to do, whatever Netflix is like greenlighting. Because last year he did the Midnight Club as well as his oh my god, whatever the one was, Midnight Mass.
This is the last thing he's doing for Netflix.
Is it?
Yeah, his contract with Netflix ran out, and he moves over to Prime.
That's probably for the best because I know he's been in an argument with them about physical media. He would love to release his stuff on physical, and they will not do it. He's gone back and forth publicly, like on social media about it with them, and wishes he could help out his fans, but he can't. So I think there's sticking points. Yeah. But they definitely, it felt like they gave him a fucking budget, and they will let him do what he wants. So I hope that he gets that same relationship with Prime.
I could find no attendance numbers on this. If anybody knows what the attendance numbers are, I'm curious what a 8-day 4-theater, 10 theater festival, how many people that brings in. That's got to be many thousands then, not a lot. 5.
Yeah, I feel like it was a fair number, but it's, it still, it feels like a little, I don't know, it feels like a Cinebar movie theater,
Oh, okay.
Filling out like a Cinebar kind of thing.
Kind of small.
So it's not like a...
It's not a huge place. Oh, okay. No, like you can see to the end of the hall pretty easily. When you go into the theaters, they're all varying sizes too. So some of them are really big, some are smaller.
I imagine when there's not a strike going on that actors are there to promote some stuff.
Yeah, instead we had a lot of producers. There was a few directors. Saw a Crypticon regular. I know that Gigi came out for VHS 85. So she was around. But yeah, a lot of those actors and promo people were not in attendance this time.
Okay. Well, it sounds like a blast. Is this going to be a recurring festival for you?
I would love for it to be. We'll see. I still don't know if I could do all 8 days, though. I think I'd die. I saw 17 movies in 4 days, and that's with 3 of those days me seeing 4 instead of 5 films. Boy. I chose to see a little bit less because I couldn't handle it. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'd have to really limit what I end up seeing because otherwise I think I go insane.
Well, that sounds very exciting.
Yeah, sounds cool.
You guys should check. Anybody who hasn't and wonders about it, you should do it. You should fucking do it. It's not crazy expensive for what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
a little peek behind the curtain. We haven't been to the Lovecraft Festival yet because we would normally record, and we're going to be down there. So we were recording this episode just a little bit before that. Next week, Eric and I can tell everybody how that went.
Yes.
It'll be awesome.
I'm sure it will.
No doubt.
Always my favorite. I saw, well, you guys, you especially, Vanessa, you got me on this Dan Carlin.
Oh.
And so I listened to his 12-hour documentary on basically the rise and fall of the Persian Empire, which takes in the story of the 300 Spartans, and then, of course, the fall of Xerxes and the rise of Alexander. All that was really, really fascinating. So I decided I wanted to go back and watch 300 again. And that movie really, really holds up. And a lot of the dialogue is straight out of the stuff that Dan Carlin is talking about. You know, the arrows will blot out the sun, so we'll fight in the shade and all that. That is literally translated from the original recordings of the. Now I can't remember who the narrator was back then that was writing all of this stuff down. But, you know, that's like 1 hour of the 12-hour documentary. So I decided then I wanted to continue with 300 Rise of an Empire, which is another big battle that he talks about in there. And this time with, instead of King Leonidas, it's Themistocles and Artemisia and all that stuff. But for whatever reason, they have taken that Frank Miller design of Xerxes as a giant, you know, and turned this into some kind of strangely supernatural, you know, he goes into this mystical pool as a normal looking human and comes out with the gold earrings and bald and, you know, 4 feet taller. And I was like, oh, this is an odd choice.
Piercing pagoda located in the pool.
It's very strange. And so I decided, well, okay, this can't be what Frank Miller's original sequel was. So I decided to buy that. Eric, you saw it over there on the coffee table. It's called Xerxes. And it is really the entire thing that Dan Carlin talks about. It is the rise of the Persian Empire and then the rise of Alexander and all of this stuff. Really, really interesting stuff. I could see why they couldn't turn that into a sequel movie, because it takes, you know, 400 years to tell that story.
Yeah.
But just fascinating stuff. I'm going to have to start dumping money into Dan Carlin's pocket and get every episode, I guess.
Yep, I've started doing that. Yep, I've paid for his Valkyrie series, and there's some other one as well.
Now, is Valkyrie the attempt to get Hitler out by some of his?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I just know that it was what I was told that I definitely have to check out, and without really reading much, I was like, here's your couple bucks, Dan.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can buy them in lumps, and then you have to figure out how to get it on your podcast player. But I'm excited. I'm so glad that you are falling down these rabbit holes.
You know, the weird part for me is I listened to Dan years ago.
Yeah.
And kind of faded away off from him for no particular reason. So it's like, yeah, he is great. I need to listen to him again.
And hopefully whatever I listen to next won't make me like want to scratch out parts of my brain for how depressing it is. But
well, I mean, it seems like a lot of it is war. So that's, you know, that's not the most uplifting subject. I'll say this, 300, still excellent. 300, Rise of an Empire, still quite bad.
Fair. Well, I'm mostly just going to talk about some stuff that I saw at Fantastic Fest, but I want to talk about some stuff that maybe is not as obvious. One of my favorite movies that I saw was something called Falling Stars, which was, it's super independent, basically following a couple of brothers who are out on this special night when the stars are falling in this world where what that means are witches come down out of the sky and kind of disappear people and steal them away. So there's a lot of mythos around how people celebrate harvest time and Halloween and how you want to stay indoors, and especially men. There's a really weird, it's one of those films that is told in a normal way, not making a big deal out of how strange the universe is, but the universe is a different one than ours.
Is it like a period piece? It's not set in present day then?
It's present day.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this sounds interesting.
Yeah. So it's a couple of brothers who are kind of from this like hick, middle of the nowhere town, who decide that they want to go see that they've got a friend who had supposedly killed a witch a year or two before, and they're going to drive out to the desert and, dig it up and see what it is, see what it looks like.
Sorry, what was this called again?
It's called Falling Stars.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I want to see this.
Yeah.
I really liked it. It is low budget. And there are a few moments where I think this has got to be a first-time filmmaker. So there's a few times where you're like, ooh, pick up the pace, or why are you still talking? But, such a cool idea. I cannot wait to see what they come up with next. I think this works really nicely. It's got a couple of different films that it's got a little bit of Pontypool feel to it in places. It's got other moments that feel like, I don't even know. There's good stuff in here, though. There's a lot of good little things in here.
Nice. Not my movie. At least not the first one I'm going to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
It's a film called Nefarious. I think I'd mentioned to you someplace, but not on the show. So I started watching this, and it's the whole idea is there's a guy interviewing a serial killer in jail. And the acting's really good, and the writing's interesting. And at some point it started to get, what is going on with this? So I looked up the director. 2 of his films he's known for, God's Not Dead and God's Not Dead 2.
Oh, no.
I don't know if you're familiar with those films.
Oh, no.
I'm not.
The whole idea is, I think it's, Kevin Sorbo plays a professor who is trying to say that God's dead. And of course, if you know anything about Kevin Sorbo, that's not his take.
Oh, okay.
So the whole movie is him being kowtowed and put down by a student who's telling him God's not dead and beats him into believing that God still exists and stuff. So
it's one of those films that like all the churches make sure you sell out to, and everybody from the church goes and attends. It's part of that genre.
And so I'm watching this Nefarious, and he suddenly starts talking about it is a demon that possessed me. And the way he sinned in his life to let this demon in. And as the movie got more and more and more preachy, it's like, oh, I've been hornswoggled.
I got tricked into one of those ones too, and it's an awful feeling. It's awful. You're like, I thought I was in a different movie. No.
So, if you're interested in that kind of film, sure, go check it out, because the production's great. The acting is solid. You take the preachy part out of the writing, it's pretty decent.
So it's just heavy-handed with his message then.
God, yes.
Does this fall into that same thing you're talking about, Vanessa, then, where they put this movie into theaters?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I've never even heard of it.
Oh, and they've just done another one recently, too, about like some guy who goes and saves children.
It's a very successful production company. They put out a lot of movies. It's got a fantastic poster. It looks quite like a solid, creepy, weird interview that serial killer movie. But then
I'm not opposed to a serial killer being possessed
demon.
by a demon. That sounds interesting to me.
Yeah. And when it first started, I was like, oh, this is a neat take. But then it very much changed because the interviewer is either atheist or agnostic. So now the serial killer is trying to convince him that he's possessed by a demon. So you need to believe in God to understand how I'm talking to you even.
Right.
So it's like, okay.
Cool.
Yeah, well. Nefarious. Nefarious. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to talk about. I think I'm going to talk to Vanessa about Mutant Mayhem. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Eric, you saw this too, right?
Seen it, yes.
I thought this was gorgeous.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought it was well voice acted and everything. And ultimately, though, I was like, oh, this is definitely a kid's movie.
It is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially when the villains show up and all that stuff that's going on there. It's like, okay.
And so, it's as much fun as I had with it, I was like, what was that one, Eric, about 12 years ago? It was a animated Mutant Ninja. And I said to you, I said, you're not going to believe this, but I just watched this latest cartoon and it's fucking great. Do you remember that one? Oh, shit.
Damn it.
All right. This was, it might have been longer than 10 or 12 years ago. It was theatrical. Vanessa, is this ringing a bell?
It's a Ninja Turtles movie?
Yeah.
It was theatrical?
Oh, okay. And it was animated.
Yeah.
And it was really a solid version. And I was like, holy cow, this is great. Mm-hmm. And I wish that kind of storytelling. I mean, I get what they're doing. This is definitely aimed at a younger audience. Yeah. And that's, I think it's probably a great movie for that. But it did feel like I'd been hornswoggled. I was like, oh, this is like a little kid's movie.
It's like a middle schooler movie, I'd say.
I for most of it, I was fine with it. I thought mainly because the animation was so interesting, and so unique that I really enjoyed watching it. And I also kind of felt, because my knowledge of Ninja Turtles does not extend far past the original comic book.
Exactly, mine too.
Because it hit when I was, old enough to where I'm like, okay, now they've turned it into a Saturday morning cartoon.
Right.
They've lost the entire vibe of the original comic.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Although I thought the first movie was kind of sat in a nice middle area for that.
That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Then the second movie came out.
Woof.
But so I enjoyed it. I was a little annoyed that the day after I purchased the $20 rental, it showed up on Paramount Plus for free.
No.
Damn it. But no, it was good. But
I literally paused the TV on several times just because the shot was so gorgeous that I was like, I felt like every time I paused it, I was like, this could be a gorgeous hanging art print. You know, it was so beautiful to watch, and that kept my attention through the whole thing.
Yeah.
The sequel seems like might be potentially very
sequel?
If they do a sequel where they're in, spoiler alert, where they're in. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a strange moment.
I know that there is a TV series planned with this same look and the same creators, so I imagine that's how that will go.
Yeah.
I think you're right. The thing that struck me for sure about this is it's creating a new base of fans for Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Made by people who found Ninja Turtles the same way I did, which was the Saturday morning cartoon.
Sure. Right.
Like, definitely that is the vibe. It does not maintain, it's so far removed from the original comic, like so far removed. Oh, yeah. Aside from just having that incredible breadth of art that you mentioned.
True.
You know what's interesting about that is there's like the Last Ronin comic book out right now, while there's also this version of them for very little kids. And it reminds me of when, you spoke about Toxic Avenger last week. Mm-hmm. At the same time they were making those R-rated trauma films, there was a Toxic Avenger cartoon.
Yes. And a toy line.
Yes, so weird.
And it's like, I guess this is, I don't know. I guess I'm interested in it.
The 80s was a special time.
It really was.
Yeah, you could get your Rambo and have him take out the Toxic Avenger.
There you go. There you go. Mutant Mayhem. Yes, available for free on Paramount Plus.
Man, it's so hard to pick what to choose. It's so hard to pick what to talk about next. But I think I'm going to go with a movie. I believe it's a Korean film called Project Silence, which is a story about, it's a disaster movie with a bunch of people stuck on a bridge, and highly specialized military dogs are set loose.
Whoa.
While the bridge is collapsing. There's a big toxic field on one side of the bridge, so they can't escape, and they have to deal with these like murder machine dogs in the other side. And it is just a insane, fun disaster movie that reminded me a lot in some ways of it's got a little bit of the Train to Busan vibes to it, but maybe meets Shin Godzilla.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was fun. It was so It's so stupid and it's so obvious, but I love that about disaster movies. So if you end up seeing this one pop up and you're not sure about it, I'd say check it out. It's worth it. It's a good watch.
Silence.
Project Silence.
Is there any way to know of these movies that you watched if anything already has a distribution deal? Or
a lot of them were looking for distribution at the time of screening, and I believe this one was as well.
Oh, okay.
I'm not 100% sure. There's a few Korean ones that I would not be shocked if they turned up on something like Netflix. Another one called Concrete Utopia, which is based on a manga that was really good too. But I would say I feel like it'll come across us somehow, some way, but I don't know when.
What would you say was your favorite movie experience at Fantastic Fest?
Out of all of it?
Yeah.
God. It would be... Oh, it's so hard because they're so different. I mean, probably Fall of the House of Usher as far as just like the thing I liked the most and am going to be the most obsessed about.
Cool.
But Falling Stars was the best of the independent things. And big budget fun films, I would go with Totally Killer, which should be coming out pretty soon.
Totally Killer. I think I saw a poster for this. Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I saw that previous. So you saw that and you liked it.
I did. It was a closing night movie. That one is, you think it's going to be made by the guy who did Happy Death Day because it's such a Happy Death Day style premise.
Right. Time travel. And
It's not made by them at all. But it is fun. It's, girl goes back to the 80s during a time in which her mom and several of her friends had been tracked down by a serial killer who was wearing a funky mask. Crazy. And there's a lot of fun stuff going on in it. It does not get the 80s right.
Very few movies do that are made nowadays.
Indeed. It makes Stranger Things look like a really well-researched Dan Carlin piece. It's really
nice
so far removed. Like there are moments I'm like, I don't think people said that. I don't think people wore that. I don't think people did that. I don't think people were talking about Reaganomics at that time. But that's okay. It's cool.
Total sidebar, and Carlos and I were talking the other day about how something happened in the year 2000 or something where, like in the 70s, we had a TV series called Happy Days, which was based on the 50s because the 50s and the 70s were so different from each other.
Yeah.
In the 90s, we had that 70s show because the 70s and the 90s were... Can you imagine doing a show about the year 2000? Everybody's still dressing the same.
Yes, I say,
our tech is a little different, but, it's just phones really are the big difference there. Our cars don't look that much different.
They've done a couple period pieces that take place during 2000, but it's mostly like teen movies and stuff. It's fine. I mean,
I think that though the 80s is like the last one where they can kind of go back to and say there were extremes and we're going to show off these extremes.
Yeah. I think before, because once you hit the internet, we're too similar at that time, like globalization and then the changing the way that we like see the world, think of the world, have memes, have jokes, communicate with each other. That hasn't shifted much.
Right.
So,
there's an interesting article that came out that I've watched a couple YouTube video people talking about the change in music, and that right now on the biggest streaming music is what's considered classic music, which is at least 18 months old or older music.
Wow.
Is outstreaming new music.
Yeah.
Because for whatever reason, that's what they're trying to figure out. It's like, is it just that anybody of a certain age only gives a shit about TikTok music now? Or is it because people are realizing there's a true generic, the same thing that's going on with Marvel movies and the generic nature of big budget films is happening in music too.
Right.
As far as the music that's got a lot of money involved with it. So I'm curious if that's why. I'm curious to watch now that that's come out and if some people are really looking into it to see what comes of that. Because, when we were growing up, somebody would be huge giant star, then they'd fade away and you wouldn't hear about much of them anymore. Even if they continued to make music, they might pop up with a hit every once in a while, like Prince or Madonna did or something. But nowadays, when has Beyonce not going to be the huge giant star. Probably never, because they just keep pumping money into what she's doing, and that's
or Taylor Swift.
She
or
doesn't have
Bieber.
to succeed. She doesn't have to actually make any effort. She's just a giant cog of the machine.
Yeah, that's
so
a good
it's
point.
very weird. She's been popular for what, like 30 years.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, that's not how music should work. When was the last era of music? You know, there was rap, and there was disco, and there was hair metal, and there was grunge, and there was even EMD music. And name a era of music of the 2000s.
Yeah, I
The
mean,
last 20, 30 years.
it's just kind of like that emo or pop punk, or like you had a couple of these little things that were out and about, but
little things. But the difference,
indie.
Yeah, the difference is that like when a hit in the 80s,
right,
worldwide, everybody knew who Madonna was.
Right.
Everybody knew who Bruce Springsteen was. And you've heard of the emo groups, and there's probably huge people that grew up with them that think it's this giant thing, but it's not they're not household names anymore.
Right.
You don't sit there and know about who's huge things unless they've been around for the 20, 30 years.
It's like the death of the like the death of the movie star. Like there's this whole concept, and I think that maybe the death of the musical artist could be.
I mean, the biggest movie stars now are people that were huge
from the 80s,
40 years ago, 50 years ago. You can still open a movie with a 60-year-old dude.
Right?
Listen, all I know is NSYNC is getting back together and they're putting out new music.
There you go. They are.
Really?
Yes. I saw a little video of them making fun of themselves dancing on stage now. It's like, yeah, we can still dance like we used to.
Oh my God.
Everybody holding their back while they're jumping.
They were, they were on Hot Ones, of course, because you got to do that interview nowadays.
Oh my God.
Anyways, I have a good movie.
Oh, finally.
No shit. Not a bad good. An actual good movie called Nightmare. I think it's Dutch. It introduces a little weird, where it introduces it's being a movie about sleep paralysis, which it's not really.
Okay.
It is a movie about nightmares, though. This unique scenario you've never heard of in a movie before, where two young people move into a place that they really can't afford, but they're going to pick up and make work for them. They move in, and the people next door to them get upset because they're making a loud party. And turns out the guy hasn't been able to sleep because of this new baby, and he's losing his mind, and his wife is not being helpful about it. And the baby ends up dying, and the woman ends up killing herself, and suddenly the young lady in the lead is pregnant.
Ooh.
And it is well done enough that the nightmare world and the real world mesh together very well. So it's there's a scene or two that's sleep paralysis, but most of it she's up and moving around, which is definitely not sleep paralysis. It was just really well done with solid acting and interesting. Get lost in what is this? Is she in a dream now? Is she out of a dream? They're talking a lot about lucid dreaming, trying to get her to be a lucid dreamer. So, which meshes the real world and the nightmare world even more.
Yeah.
So it's on Shudder, and I feel like, oh man, because the last couple of things I've watched on Shudder have now been really good.
Ooh.
So like, okay, Shudder getting their shit back together. They're trying hard again, because this is the kind of film I love on Shudder. Foreign film, something abstract and weird, but very well done.
Nice.
Is this brand new?
This says 2022.
Okay.
So
I'll count that as brand new.
Yeah.
Nightmare. Very cool.
That sounds awesome.
Well, guys, how about we take a little break, and then when we come back, we are going to continue with the October Country.
I suppose if you were to describe this room and the things in it, it's a way of keeping yourself open. All kinds of books and philosophy and religion and humor and art and all kinds of artifacts, a piece of a balloon, a part of an old Valentine, signs from the films I worked on here. Moby Dick was my first screenplay. A billboard from Fahrenheit 451. masks here that I've collected, Spanish conquistadors, various tin masks. I have put away on various shelves 30 years of Prince Valiant. That's the sort of enthusiasm I have for comic strip. I have all of Buck Rogers from the year 1929 up through 37. He was one of the initial prime movers in my life. I couldn't have existed without Buck Rogers. All of Edgar Rice Burroughs' Tarzan books put away. Some of my own paintings I mess around with. Not very good. This is supposed to be Mars, not a very good one. It's one of the few that I like. A picture of the Halloween tree.
And we're back. Of course, this month we are talking every episode about episodes of the Ray Bradbury Theater. It was an anthology series that ran for 3 seasons on First Choice Super Channel in Canada and HBO in the United States from 85 to 86, and then on USA Network running for 4 additional seasons. So 7 seasons total, it sounds like.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All 65 episodes were written by Ray Bradbury based on short stories or novels he wrote, which is pretty amazing. Yeah. Most of them have that silly opening segment that Vanessa does not like, of him sitting in his office, which is kind of awesome. I mean, all the props in there are his actual things.
It would be a fun office to explore.
Absolutely.
It would in real life, but for a set, it looks clunky. It's just really messy.
Well, I wonder if they showed up and they're like, hey, Ray, you want to clean this up a little bit? I did.
Looks good, right? Roll camera, boys.
Eric, you want to start us off this time?
Sure.
I'm putting 10 minutes on the buzzer, but I don't think that we need it.
Probably won't, yes. And I say to you, hail and farewell.
Oh.
Ooh.
That is my episode.
People ask, where do you get your ideas? Well, right here. All of this is mine. I'll never starve here. I'm Ray Bradbury. And this is...
Here lie my first magic sets, given to me when I was 10 years old, when I thought that by magic I could control the world around me. My parents gave me sweaters and socks for Christmas. I rebelled. I wanted to stay young, a kid with a magic set forever. I wished somehow I could smoke the proper cigars to stunt my growth. Out of those Christmases and my secret desire to scrunch down and be 10 years old forever, the story that follows was born.
This one also came out in 1989. And again, depending on where you look, IMDb and Wikipedia said this is season 3, episode 10, and Peacock and Rotten Tomatoes have this as season 4, episode 10.
Interesting. Maybe there's not really 7 seasons.
Who knows, man? Depends on where you look, I guess. This is directed by Alan Croker. He's done 8 episodes of Forever Night. I don't know if you remember that one, Kelly.
I do.
Vampires.
I do.
13 episodes of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
13 episodes of Star Trek Voyager.
Yeah.
13 episodes of Star Trek Enterprise.
Oh.
And 8 episodes of Chuck.
Oh, I liked Chuck.
Yeah, oh yeah, that was a fun film or show. Who do you think? Writer? You know? Okay.
Is it Ray Bradbury?
Yeah. Actor in it, Josh Savino, who's in 114 episodes of The Wonder Years. He was the kind of nerdy friend.
Oh, okay.
Law and Order, SVU, and Camp Cucamonga.
All right.
Sure.
Also, Georgie Collins, who was in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the TV show. The movie Rad.
Yes.
And The Boy Who Talks to Badgers.
Excellent.
Worst superpower ever.
Frank C. Turner, who's in Needful Things, Sonic the Hedgehog, Hot Rod, Air Bud, Seventh Inning Fetch, Snow Dogs, Cats and Dogs, Call of the Wild, Air Bud World Pup, Air Bud Golden Retriever.
Wow.
Is this
Air
a
Bud
dog actor?
No.
Oh, okay.
It actually is a guy. Has 151 credits, but apparently he did a lot of... Air Bud was kind of his go-to there for a while.
Wow.
So this also starts with a classic bully story. The kid from Wonder Years running down the street with a bunch of jock losers chasing him and harassing the nerdy kids. It's like you started talking about yours last episode. I'm going, seems a theme for Mr. Bradbury. In the middle of the attack, he sees a girl that kind of catches his eye, and somehow, for a moment, all the bullies disappear. And once he kind of shakes himself out of recognizing the little girl, they're back again. I'm not quite sure what happened there. But he realizes as he sees the little girl, she looks familiar, but then she sees the mom, and she looks more familiar. She knows the mom, and the mom knows him. You're not entirely certain why, but it is a little bit like, okay, this is uncomfortable. The boy then shows that he has a series of pictures taken over decades, showing parents that he has been with over the years, going back to the 1940s. And this is taking place when it was shot. It takes place in 1989, and he looks like he's 12 years old.
Okay, interesting.
And this very unusual kid, and he, in the classic Ray Bradbury, there's no explanation of why the kid's 12, which is, I think, is great. And he sits there and he's telling his current family, well, it's time for me to move on. People are starting to question why I haven't changed. And the parents had no idea who he was. He presents them all these photos, and then they go into flashback to show the few years earlier, he'd showed up on their doorstep.
Okay.
And he goes to various towns, finds a listing of some family that recently lost an 11 or 12-year-old kid, and shows up on their doorstep saying he's lost and needs help. And then weasels his way into living with them for 3 or 4 years until he has to move on.
Certainly we won't call the authorities.
Nope, apparently not. In his quest to figure out what he's going to do with his life, he tried to get into a circus, but the circus people was like, sorry, you don't look weird enough. You just look like a 12-year-old kid. But I'm 40 years old. But, and eventually you kind of see that this woman he had known previously when she was the age of her current daughter. So it's like, it's a well-told story. It's not as good as the first one. I really liked the first one.
Right.
This one was good.
The first one you talked about, you mean?
Yeah, last week's episode. Ray Bradbury wrote this story because he had a childhood memory of him wanting to stay a kid forever.
Oh.
And he wanted to use magic, and maybe if he found the right magic set or cigars, he could stay small and it'd stunt his growth. In the story, his written story, it reads like, this is kind of a good idea. This is kind of interesting and kind of fun. In the filmed version, it's very uncomfortable and seems like he's kind of enjoys it, but kind of doesn't like it at all. So it's an interesting juxtaposition to read the story and watch the
I wonder
episode.
if that's the time passing on Bradbury and how he felt about being a child.
I would, probably, because he explored it in a lot of his stories, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
The story is more introspective and hopeful, while the TV episode feels very hopeless. Like, I am trapped in this. I've learned to live with it, but this is, however long I end up existing, this is all I got. That's like, Jesus. Because, you figure the age you chose, like if you're at least 16, you could like get your own jobs and do some stuff. But that age, you're kind of stuck. Oh, I don't know. That's about all I got. Would you be interested in being a kid forever?
I mean, sounds like the plot of Orphan.
God, there's not a lot of murders. Let's see. What is an interesting thing that we have in a factoid? Whoa, Ray Harryhausen. Oh, give me a gem here. Who was best man at Ray Bradbury's wedding.
Oh.
The Ray When Ray show. During a BAFTA 2010 Awards tribute honoring Harryhausen's 90th birthday, Bradbury spoke of first meeting him at Forrest J. Ackerman's house. My God, what a trio that would have been to hang out with.
Cool.
Holy shit. When they were both 18, their shared love of science fiction King Kong and the King Vidor directed from The Fountainhead, written by Ayn Rand, was the beginning of a lifelong friendship. These early influences inspired them to believe in themselves and affirm their career choices. After their first meeting, they kept in touch at least once a month.
Wow.
In a friendship that lasted over 70 years.
Wow.
That is two incredibly brilliant people knowing each other and one unbelievable person who understands what was going on in that world between those three guys. That is so cool.
Yeah, we're not going to see people like that getting together anymore. I don't, you talk about the death of the movie star, or talking about the death of the book, the author star and stuff like that too. That's just, all that stuff's going away.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something about, hey, let's get together and have a Zoom call every couple months. That doesn't sound quite as cool as communicating with Ray Bradbury and Ray Harryhausen. Oof.
Vanessa, you want to talk about yours?
Absolutely. So I chose one called The Long Rain.
I'm Ray Bradbury, and this is
which is season 6, episode 6, maybe? TBD? Who knows? I kind of chose this one because it had more of a sci-fi premise that sounded really interesting to me. This is directed by Lee Tamahori, who has 15 credits to his name. 15 doesn't sound like a lot, but he did do Die Another Day, Along Came a Spider, The Edge, Next, and XXX State of the Union.
Wow.
Among others.
Some big budget film.
Yeah, big budget, action-y stuff. And you can kind of tell from this. I would say that this is more of an action story. This was written by Ray Bradbury.
Ooh.
Weird. Starring Mark Singer as Trask. He's been in 92 things, including Beastmaster, V, the TV series, 5 episodes of Arrow, and 22 episodes of Young and the Restless. Michael Hurst as Simmons, 75 episodes, including 79 eps of Hercules, the legendary journeys, journals as Lalos, and 4 episodes of Xena, as well as a lot of TV walk-on. Brian Sargent as Bots, 35 episodes, including 35 credits, including Dead Alive, Eagle vs. Shark, Meet the Feebles, Slow West, and recently The Hobbit, Desolation of Smaug as the voice of Spider. And Mark Rafferty as Cooper, who has 17 credits, including 2 Xena episodes, 3 episodes of Satisfaction, and 286 episodes of Neighbors as Darcy Tyler.
Wow.
So the story is, we find this army spacecraft that has crash landed on a world where it never stops raining. This is opposed to Earth, where it has not rained in hardly any time at all. Only one of the 4 guys remembers it ever raining even once on Earth. They need to walk 8 miles to the Sun Dome to save themselves because this place is really harsh. Not only is it raining hard, but there are these sort of plants that are carnivorous, and if you stand still for too long, they will wrap you up and eat you. There's one dead guy that is used as sort of an example of that who lays there. Each of them has their own personality. One dude is really over the top, nutso, Looney Tunes, 90s irritating, where he's just doing a lot of screaming and yelling and bobcat goldthorping over in the corner. And the other guys are fine. One of them is in charge of them. So they start walking, and they're using this sort of like GPS-y thing, futuristic GPS guy that's telling them where they're going, and they're following it. And they go for 8 miles, and they're going through the water and the whatever, and they make it, and they're exhausted, and they're back to their spaceship. So the GPS has done them wrong. So the sergeant's like, well, we'll just walk towards the light because we know that the light is coming from the sun dome. And they start going, and one guy is just too exhausted, and he basically puts his head back and he drowns because the rain is so intense.
Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah. The other guy, of course, the Looney Tunes guy, goes Looney Tunes. He's fucking nuts. He starts, shooting up in the sky and is being weird and irritating. And then the last guy who he's with just says, hey, man, I'm done. I'm done. I'm going to stop here. I'm over. I can't do this anymore. And he's like, no, keep going. He's like, nope, this is my choice. I'm staying here. I don't want to go insane. It's too much. So he leaves them there, goes around the bend, and of course sees the sun dome, tries to go back, but the guy's dead. So goes to the sun dome, and it's warm, and he falls asleep. He has a nightmare that like the plant that got stuck to his shoe took over the whole thing, and he couldn't leave on the spaceship rocket that's in there because it was taken over by plants. But it's okay. It's nothing. It's a dream. The end. Credits. So.
What was the Sun Dome?
The Sun Dome is like this place that people had built that's like this big, like, safe space that is always sunny inside.
Okay. I think it's a sports dome in Florida.
Right.
That too.
Right.
Little A, little B. It has like a hot lamp in there. I thought that the twist was going to be that I was like, oh no, he gets in there and then he can't get out and it's too hot and it's sunny and he can't. It's too contrasty because the way they shoot it, it looks like it's boiling and his skin's going to come off. But nope, it's just orange. Everything's fine. The premise is neat. I think the story is probably way, way, way better because they don't have the budget to pull it off. Like the plants, they're just plants, and the rain is just rain. And so when everyone's like, man, I can't do it anymore. They're like, really? You sure? Seems okay. I mean,
somebody moving from Arizona to Seattle.
I
can't handle this rain.
It's so much. Like, I guess it's fine, guys. You might get a little bit of trench foot. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. I don't know. I will say, didn't have the beginning, the opening of the, like, you've got Ray Bradbury, like, introing with his office is, like, 2 seconds long by season 6. It's, like, his office and we're out. And, like, and there was no intro with him at all. In fact, there wasn't even a voiceover with him. So I was like, oh, all right.
Weird.
Trivia, I don't have any. The only thing I have for you guys is that there was a featured review from Hitchcock, no K, on Amazon. My feet are damp! ! 4 men are survivors of a crash on another planet. Perhaps it's Venus. It rains all the time. They have come from Earth as colonists. Apparently, they have the opposite problem on Earth. No rain at all. They have a kind of GPS that makes their way as to the Sun Dome, a city under a big bubble. 3 of the guys can't handle the incessant rain. They crack up and become food for the plants, a carnivorous part of the landscape. One of the guys stranger than the rest, but is dealing with those who don't have his will. Oh, sorry, stronger. In these Bradbury stories, the astronauts are frequently all too human. Their training seems grossly inadequate for the forces they must face. But what's really interesting is that these guys don't even last one day. I'm not even sure what the author wanted us to take away from this.
I have a little bit of trivia if you'd like to read that very bottom one.
I would love to. Late in life, Bradbury retained his dedication and passion despite what he described as the devastation of illness and deaths of many good friends. Oh, Ray! Among the losses that deeply grieved him was the deaths of Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry, an intimate friend for many years. They remained close for nearly 30 years after Roddenberry asked him to write for Star Trek, which Bradbury never did, objecting that he, quote, never had the ability to adapt other people's ideas into any sensible form, end quote. I didn't know that. That's crazy.
I picked that one for you.
What?
There you go.
Star Trek nerd.
I know.
It's a little surprising. You'd think he would. He's a little dark for Star Trek.
I don't know. There's a couple episodes though would have could have worked well for.
I think that probably he was doing well enough in the 60s that he was like, I don't really want to do something I don't
on this failing TV show that nobody's going to like.
Yeah. Your sci-fi is different than my sci-fi, Gene.
Okay, so this is my turn. Oops, I'll give myself 10 minutes.
That's right.
I chose The Emissary.
Look around, find what I need, and begin. I'm Ray Bradbury, and this is... Well then, right now, what shall it be? Out of all this, what do I choose to make a story? I never know where the next one will take me. And the trip? Exactly 1/2 exhilaration, exactly 1/2 terror.
Season 2, Episode 3. This is directed by Sturla Gunnarsson, Academy Award nominated director. 53 credits, including episodes of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Defying Gravity, Schitt's Creek, Motive, and Degrassi, The Next Generation.
Yeah. Good show.
Written, of course, by Ray Bradbury. Starring Helen Shaver, who has 90 credits. But I'm going to tell you what those are first. But then, so she was in the Amityville Horror. She was in The Believers, The Craft, and 87 episodes of Poltergeist: The Legacy.
Wow.
She has 60 directing credits too.
Whoa.
So she's still working in the industry.
Damn, girl.
It also stars Kiram Maliki Sanchez, who has 72 acting credits, including Cherry Falls, The Punisher, Warzone, and Texas Chainsaw. Also stars Chubby the dog, which I think is kind of a mean name.
Aw, poor Chubbs.
Yeah. The Emissary. We meet Martin, who is a young boy with a generic illness that is keeping him bedridden. Is it cancer? Is it mono? Unknown, but he does seem sad and wan. Martin has a dog with the unimaginative name of Dog. And Dog roams the small town they live in, completely unfettered, much to the consternation of some of the townsfolk. See, Dog rolls around and stuff. He rolls around in leaves and dirt and grass and garbage, and he brings it all back on his fur to Martin, jumping on his bed and letting the boy live vicariously through the various smells and debris. Dog is also a digger. The neighbors hate him because he's always digging huge holes in their yards. But Martin is lonely, so he creates a little tag for Dog's collar. A name tag? Fuck no. This kid has put his own name on the tag. And a message that says he's bedridden and would love a friend. One day, Dog brings him a friend in the form of Miss Haight, a woman who turns out she would have been Martin's teacher if he had been allowed to actually attend school. And so she shows up. She thinks it's adorable, the way that Martin did this and everything. And she brings a book with her. And over the next several months, she reads to Martin every day after school, and they develop a really lovely relationship. But one day, Miss Haight doesn't show up, and we find out that she was killed in a car accident.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Martin falls into a deep depression, of course, and after her funeral, Dog also goes missing, and now Martin is very depressed.
Jeez.
Good Lord.
One night, his parents leave for a brief amount of time. I think it's Halloween night, actually. And Martin is alone in the house. Dog has been missing for 2 days, but all of a sudden, Martin hears the dog come through the downstairs door and start running up the stairs. Martin is overjoyed as the dog jumps on the bed, but that quickly turns to kind of gross. The dog is covered in dirt, and it is a very smelly dirt. And the boy is like, "What have you been digging up?" He realizes the dog has been digging, maybe digging for 2 days. And whatever he dug up does not smell very good. And then the bedroom door slowly creeps open and we hear Miss Haight's voice. So this is the end. This is one of my absolute favorite stories by Bradbury. I read this in a collection when I was about 10, and I thought it was the greatest story ever written. It has stuck with me forever. The episode, unfortunately, pretty so-so. And so I was really disappointed with the adaptation. It's always going to be the case adapting Bradbury. His stories, there's so much going on in the mind of the character, and it's always, or it's almost always, a single person. So he's got to kind of force a lot of this into dialogue, and this kid actor, not the best. I mean, not horrible, but not the best. Still, I had a good time with it. I urge everyone to buy The October Country and read this story. It's a really interesting story behind the story. He originally wrote The Emissary for his first book, Dark Carnival, which came out in 1947. And then he revised it in 1951 for publication in the short-lived literary journal New Story. He then rewrote it extensively for inclusion in The October Country, which is where I read it. Along the way, however, the story appeared in unexpected form. It was plagiarized with flimsily disguised alterations. The sick boy confined to a bed becomes a blind young woman in a wheelchair, as What the Dog Dragged in the December 1951 issue of the EC Comics publication Vault of Horror. Other unauthorized comic book appropriations followed, and when Bradbury learned that the April-May 1952 issue of Weird Fantasy, another EC series, contained a comic called Home to Stay, which ripped off not one but 2 of his stories, he took action. Bradbury wrote to EC Comics, "Just a note to remind you of an oversight. You have not as yet sent on the check for $50 to cover the use of secondary rights on my 2 stories. I feel this was probably overlooked in the general confusion of office work and look forward to your payment in the near future."
Oh.
Although William Gaines, who was EC's publisher, initially denied that the firm had plagiarized the stories, he sent the author the check for $50. And before the end of the year, Weird Fantasy announced in its pages that the formerly unauthorized Home to Stay was just the first in a series of authorized comic book adaptations of Bradbury stories. Both parties had come to an agreement. Rather than a full-length treatment of his books, EC would end up adapting some 24 stories by Bradbury for publication in their various comic books, such as Tales from the Crypt, shock suspense stories, and weird science.
Wow.
I kind of love the, let's not immediately go to lawsuit. Yes. I'm just going to send this here and see what happens.
By the way, you forgot my check. I have another little general trivia on Ray Bradbury himself, Ray Bradbury. Bradbury's short story, I Sing the Body Electric, which is a very, very popular story of his, was adapted for the 100th episode of The Twilight Zone. And then there was a 1982 television movie called The Electric Grandmother, which is also based on it. I Sing the Body Electric. I'm going to be looking up both of those after this.
Yeah.
So we all beat our time.
Weird.
Shocking.
Yeah.
You know. That's the fun of it. It's a little different than when you watch a 2.5-hour movie.
Yeah.
This story creeped me out so bad when I read it. And then in this version of it, they've got the door opening and she says the first thing she had said to him, when she came in, but they use like the same line of dialogue. And I think it would have been so much better if it had been a voice like this,
Yeah, totally.
So I don't know if for the show he was like, I'm going to leave it a little kind of uplifting. Like, yes, I dug up your teacher and she's exactly the same.
She's just
dog
smells
stinks.
worse.
But in the story, you definitely get the feeling that you don't want your teacher back.
It's a little bit of a monkey's paw.
Yeah.
In there.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Really cool. Okay. Well, I'm having a good time with this. I hope you guys are too. I hope the listeners are.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing 2 more weeks of it, so you're stuck with it regardless.
If you're not,
guess what?
Might I recommend going to our back catalog, revisiting some of the things we've talked about before. Feel free. They're all out there.
Certainly.
Or if you want to watch alongside us, it's available in quite a few places.
Peacock without commercials, Freevee, and Pluto TV with commercials. The books are readily available in all sorts of forms. This is the part where we say thanks to everyone who's liking and sharing posts, who's writing in and telling us their feelings on a movie they watched, regardless of whether Vanessa liked it or not.
True.
Who's participating in the value for value model, which is if you get some value out of this, you give some value back. Easy way to do that is with the subscription button we have on the website, which is a little PayPal thing. You decide an amount you want to spend every month. That could be $1. That could be $100.
$1 an episode.
So far, nobody's taken me up on the $100 an episode idea.
And don't forget to join us on the intermittently very active new Facebook page we've got for Strange Eons Radio Talk, and YouTube comments are also welcome. We get some really interesting stuff from, well, at least Real Badger. So join in with him on YouTube commenting and Facebook stuff.
I realized while I was looking at his comments that he must be commenting live as he's listening, because sometimes it's just a smiley face. I'm like, I wonder what I said. It wasn't one of you guys. I know that. All right, guys. So we're going to be coming back next month. We're talking about more Ray Bradbury Theater. See you next Thursday. Did I say we're coming back next month?
Next month.
Well, we're coming back next week. Talking about Ray Bradbury Theater. See you next Thursday.
Transportation and other considerations for Strange Eons Radio, produced by Pan Am Airlines. When you think of traveling, think of Pan Am. You can't beat the experience. Guests of Strange Eons Radio stay at Econo Lodge Everett. It's an easy stop on the road, you know what we mean. Strange Eons Radio is recorded live in front of a studio audience. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a positive review on your favorite podcast app. Sit, Ubu, sit.
Fucking nerds everywhere. Doing nerd stuff.